So we stayed at that hotel for one night, and the next morning it was warm out and the snow started to melt. And so I called up my mother, who lives in California, and I told her what happened with my father. And she said that she would call around and see if there was a hotel coupon on the internet that was close by, somewhere that I could bring the children, since we didn't have a house to stay in. So meanwhile, I drove to Waterbury, Connecticut, and we went to Chuck E. Cheese. The whole ride there was conflict on the roads, and as I was pulling out of Chuck E. Cheese, a car almost hit us. So it was non-stop conflict with the CIA and especially the Vatican. So after we went to Chuck E. Cheese arcade, I just went around to do little errands. We went to the mall, and then I went to get my hair cut, and I wound up at this place that had a bunch of Italian people with Italian accents, and the lady cut my hair. She did a good job. But after I was there for 5 minutes, this guy walked in who looked like a little linebacker. He was about maybe 5'8", 220 pounds. Looked like an Italian guy, had real dark eyes. I really didn't pay attention to him, but he walked in the manner of somebody who was used to being possessed, especially by a drac or a Bafath. They kind of trudge along in a manner that's very stiff, and they kind of like waddle with their whole bodies. But I didn't really pay attention to him. I got the haircut, and as I was exiting the place with my daughters, my older daughter runs to get in the car first, and so I unlocked the car door, and she got in, and I started to reach to buckle her seatbelt on, and my younger daughter starts to kind of run away from me. So I began to chase her. Now that same guy that I described that was getting his hair cut, I guess he came in maybe a little while after I did, because he didn't even need a haircut because he had gotten finished before I did. And so he was now in the car that was parked beside me, and he was hunched over with his eyes shut, like he was praying or meditating or something. And my daughters ran around the car, and at the same time he like sat up straight and he started to like drive forward. And like I grabbed my daughter from like running in front of his car and I glared at the guy because it was weird. He just like woke up and he put the car into gear and he like almost ran over my daughter. And I can't remember what exactly was said, but he proceeds to get out of the car, and when he opened his eyes were just pure black. He was like one of the worst guys I've seen. So I got ready to fight this guy because it looked like we're about ready to fight. And my daughter, the younger one, she points at him, and even though she didn't speak, there was a loud voice, though a young female voice, that said, "You weren't being careful." And her voice seemed to shake this guy, and he began to shake, and he began to bitch, and he began to stutter, and he looked at my daughter and acted like he was a child, and he was like, but I was being careful, I was being careful. He got totally embarrassed, jumped in his car, and took off out of the parking lot. I put my daughter in the car. My mother sent me a text that said that she found a place in Mystic, Connecticut, and maybe I would want to go over there where they have an aquarium, and it's a small seaport, and they have a little like boardwalk, and they have what's called Old Mystic Seaport, which was like the historical, traditional seaport that's now like a village that's become a museum, and they have all like the blacksmith shop, the boat making shop, a lighthouse, a shipbuilding shop, I should say, the old tavern, the old pharmacy, just all the old buildings they would have in a seaport that looked like a little village. So she said she found a coupon for a discount over there, and why don't I bring the girls over there? So we drove over there, and we went to the aquarium the first night, and we stayed at a hotel that was really nice. It had, I remember, over the pool was like skylights, so you could see, I guess, the sky during the day, but at night it kind of had a mirror to it, and it was a real nice pool. And they had a little arcade for kids and a little workout room, but it was a real nice hotel and the kids liked it there. And the next day we went to, like I said, the historical seaport, and I don't know if it was usually closed at that time, because it was, like I said, the beginning of March, and it was kind of cold. But like I said, it was warm the day before, so a lot of the snow had melted, and I don't think they got as much snow in Mystic, Connecticut than they did in Shell Beach or Shelton, Connecticut. And we went to this the seaport, and there was an interesting group of people over there, and I'm pretty sure they were Vatican, but they were probably the best group of people out of the Vatican that I've seen so far, that I've met so far. And we went into one place that had all the different ship compasses and the different nautical instruments that they would have for ships on display. And we talked to this lady who was kind of cool, and then like a guy walked in with a long beard, short hair, and they were kind of like not really arguing, but she called him Mr. Militant, and I thought it was pretty funny. And there was this pretty woman who ran the I think they call it, I forget the name of it, but it's an old-fashioned name for a pharmacy. It begins with an A. And she was real pretty. And then there's a lady who ran the old schoolhouse, and she had dark hair and she had the traditional outfit on, but she was shaking as though she had maybe Parkinson's, but she was an elegant lady. And just some of the men were kind of cool. And at one point we went onto a ship. They had a couple of ships there, docked there, and the lady that was running the ship was really nice. And when we're exiting the ship, there's a blacksmith, I guess, shop, and we just heard this guy banging on his something. He had a hammer, he was banging. And the girls were like, "What's that?" I'm like, "That must be the blacksmith place. You want to go see that?" And wasn't the best feeling. You know, like I said, this is how they kind of project stuff. But you can't go around like carrying unnecessary fear. So we're kind of like walking over to the blacksmith place, and one of the men that ran one of the stores before walks up to us, and he looks legitimately concerned. He's like, they're having an arts and crafts at the old schoolhouse where your children like to come over there and take part in that. And because I think that he was trying to give me a heads up, because the guy over there that was banging on whatever he was banging on with his hammer wasn't the best guy. So I said, "Yeah, that sounds good. We'll go over there." So we went over there, and there's a nice lady in the schoolhouse, and they had the arts and crafts and a bunch of toys, and the girls wanted to stay there for an hour or two. And then they went out to a little playground outside. And then the last thing we did when we were there, we went over to a larger ship they were restoring, and it was not in the water, but it was on the land, and they were it was like it was a traditional Navy vessel. And so we kind of took a tour for that. And as we're leaving, there was this beautiful girl that came out, and she had blonde hair, and she had a construction hat, and she looked like she had been a person that, you know, was was hit by the program, and they tried to change her, and she wouldn't change. And instead, she kind of took on more of a silent or autistic manner, but she was completely gorgeous, long, curly, blonde hair, pretty blue eyes, and she came out with a construction hat because she was doing, I guess, some refinishing work on the ship. But she was absolutely gorgeous. And I remember her. And that's basically all I remember from Mystic, Connecticut. Oh yes, one last thing. We were at night. It seems the worst people come out, and we had gone to get a pizza, and we went into the grocery store next door to the pizza place to get like a 2-liter bottle of soda. And as we were walking through the supermarket, this is why I have to say you have to be real calm with kids. You know, we end up getting some soda and some other things, and I was carrying this. And one daughter's on one side, one of my daughters on the other side, and a witch basically uses her power to pull my daughter, one of my daughters, I could just see that she was just kind of like pulled in front of me, and she fell in front of me. And I'm carrying all that stuff. So it would be bad if I, of course, dropped the stuff on her or fell on her. And it would be even worse if I reprimanded her or started yelling at her for her clumsiness and all this stuff. You have to be real patient and real understanding, because the same thing that's happening to you is happening to your children. And people who don't understand what's happening, they end up getting very upset with their children because they think their children spill something on purpose. The kids would like go to reach for something and their hand will jerk and they'll knock over soda and stuff. You just have to be real patient. You have to be real understanding, because bad stuff like poltergeist stuff like this will happen, and it's not the child's fault. The child's not doing it on purpose, spilling the soda or falling in front of you. So please be as sympathetic as you can for the children. And I think an old hag did that in the grocery store, and I kind of made fun of the hag because I realized what was happening. And I paid for the groceries, and as we're walking out, there was this older guy with a shaved head in the parking lot. And just by looking in his eyes, he looked like maybe he was not the worst guy, but he had been changed that way. And he's glaring at my children as I'm putting them in the seat, and they're kind of like nervously looking over at him. And so my daughter says, "Look, he has shark eyes." So I buckled him in, I kind of rolled in the window and said, "Hey, how you doing there, buddy?" I said, "My daughters say that you have shark eyes," because he was sitting in the parking lot just glaring at us as we're in there. And he looks at me and he said, "Is that a good thing?" I said, "No, it's not a good thing. See you later, shark eyes." So then we go get our pizza. And we go back to the hotel room, eat the pizza, go swimming, and call it a night.